Hi, it's Winsome Gunning. I do hope you've been following my channel and some of the videos that I've put up about the changes I've made to my lifestyle because of the journey I've had through breast cancer. As you can see, I'm now well. I hope I'm the healthiest I've ever been, I would like to think, but it hasn't just happened. And for those of you who are starting out on a breast cancer journey, I know it's not an easy one. So I thought if I would share some of my experiences, perhaps it would be helpful and you'd be more interested in what I have done to try to change my life. It was nearly 30 years ago now, and I was a high school teacher when I found a lump, and I went to my doctor and he sent me off for an ultrasound. I really wasn't thinking a lot about it. I just assumed, being so young, I'd be fine. But the ultrasound showed that it wasn't something, just a normal something. So in those days, they only found out when they did the surgery whether it was a cancer or not. And so I had to go to my school and tell them I was having surgery in a few days, and then prepare for the surgery. It was all very rushed and quite a shock. And one of the things on my um, journey that made such a difference was I did trust my doctor that I had at the time, and he gave me a wonderful referral. I think it's very important for all of us to trust that our doctors will give us the right referral. And I remember when I walked into the surgeon's office the first time, full of apprehension. He had such a lovely peace about him, and he was so caring and kind that I just felt I was in good hands. And that was the surgeon that did my first breast cancer and also the second surgery I had. So that was about 30 years ago now. And then I went through the surgery and followed by standard procedure, 6 weeks of radiation. And then I never got my teaching job back. It just wasn't given to me. I don't know what my doctor had written into the department. He did sit me down, I'm sure this doesn't apply to everybody, during my radiation, and he felt that I could be well, but not if I went back to teaching. So I just was sitting there waiting and not sure what was going to happen. And I had been an artist, and that was my dream when I was young. And I started to paint during that time, and I was lucky to find a gallery, and that was how I came to be a professional artist. So it was another 9 years later when I was going for yearly checks after that, and I was called back to an ultrasound, and the person who did the diagnosis there said that had another look at the ultrasound. He said he thought it was clear, so I went away happy, as one does. And then I think that was in March, and then in September I noticed a lump on my other breast, a little bit bigger than the one I'd seen on the first breast, and I went straight to my GP, who brought out my files and said, oh, that was where the cyst was diagnosed in March. So I went away, and something in me said, I think I'll ask him for an ultrasound. So I went back to my doctor and I said, I think I'll have an ultrasound if you don't mind. I just would feel more happy if I had that. And it did turn out in the ultrasound, the second one, that it was a breast cancer. And because it had been left so long since March, it was more advanced. It was I've had 3 breast cancers. That was the most, it was a stage 2, the other one was a stage 1. They were just all sort of normal, standard estrogen-fed cancers. And so that process was over the year 2000, so radiation was problematic because of the concern over what might happen to the digital machines with the changeover. So I was getting double doses of radiation each day for a little while there. So that was all part of the journey, but I did discover, at that time I discovered beautiful music and classical music, and I used to listen to that, and that seemed to, and Andre Bocelli, whose music I absolutely adore. I used to just lie there after a session and listen to the music, and it took me to another place, and I felt that was my thing at that time. It was very relaxing when I was driving back and forth to the radiation place twice a day, and in between I just lie on my bed and listen to this beautiful music. So I don't remember that as being a harsh time. I remember it as being a very healing time. And then after that, I had a kind of confused time. There's a lot happening in my own life at that time. I think my mother had just died, and a few other issues happening. And it was an unsettled time, but it wasn't till about 8 years later again, and each time after the radiation, they'd put me on an anti-estrogen medication, but I reacted to them. But about 9 years later, I had to have surgery for a major ovarian cyst, and I think this was probably related, and that's why I've taken the path I have to try to lead a lifestyle that is more healing. So I was living in an apartment block at that time where there was a lot of high living people, and I was exposed to a lot of sprays and chemicals. Everyone seemed to be wanting everything to be perfect all the time, and so I went to, and I'd also lost my lovely GP, so was going to a lot of different doctors, and then I found this, but I knew something wasn't quite right, and then I went to this doctor who immediately sent me for all the right tests, and I had a really large ovarian cyst, which was removed, and also my ovaries. I think that may have been helpful in the long term. And then a few months after that, I went up for my regular breast check, and they found there was what they called a lucky pickup. A little breast cancer just started again. So I think it was all related to what was happening at that time with the hormones in my body. And so I went through the same procedures, the surgeries and the radiation, and then I decided that I was going to change my life, that I was going to really look at other ways of living, and that's what I'm sharing on YouTube here. I would really love it if you would like this video, if it has helped you understand why I came to look at other ways of living, and how I'm so grateful now, it's nearly 13 years later, to be at the best health I've ever been. And I'd love to think that someone going through all those tedious processes. Oh, one other thing too. I was very lucky because I'm on Femara, which is very good medication, which has really suited my body. This time I didn't react to the anti-estrogen medication. Each time I did have breast cancer, there seemed to be a new discovery, but this one I think is wonderful. I couldn't speak more highly of being on that. and it suited my personality. And so it's so many factors, I think, that lead to good health, but just knowing that it's always a process you're going through, and we do have power ourselves to create changes as well. So I'd love you to subscribe to my channel now that I've actually put my real face up, not the Facebook version, which has taken a bit of a journey because I'm not a natural speaker, but I would love to feel I'm contributing something and sharing something. So I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope that we see you again and that what you learn on my channel can be of help to you. Thank you for watching.